What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the one and only, sometimes imitated, but never replicated Form Check Friday. That's right, you heard it here first. We're going to pick up right where we left off with Charlie's bench press. Now, if you stuck with us last week, you would have seen this bench press. We left it to y'all, the viewers, to check out in the comments section. Now, a real quick recap. Charlie is from the UK. He's 6'1", 188 pounds, wants to compete in the future, and has been lifting for 2 years, powerlifting focused training for about 8 or 9 months. Now, this is 110 kilos on a third attempt at a mock meet that he did, and he says he doesn't feel like his leg drive is effective enough, and he wasn't sure what else he could do to try to get his total up, if you know what I mean. So one of the things that Charlie can do is check out our incredible sale and giveaway of over $2,000 worth of stuff that's going on for the Calgary Barbell training app right now. You sign up, you get access to all these programs. There's going to be 38 by the end of the month here. You also get access to this fantastic Discord here. You can see people posting their lifts in here, and me delivering a 1 hour long form check on every single lift that's posted, as well as answering a bunch of questions about how to modify the programs. This isn't just a program library, this is coaching light. Anyways, getting back to Charlie's bench, specifically technique wise, what I think we can do, number one, is perhaps pull the bar out a little bit further to help set the upper back. Now, out of the rack here, I think we're still a little shrugged up, still a little kind of like shoulders forward. I think we can take a little bit more time to create a bit of a better upper back position and really reinforce it by pulling the bar out, pulling the shoulders down, kind of as we get into position here. Now, the other thing is our leg drive seems kind of jolty, kind of doesn't really happen until the later half of the lift. So what I think is also missing is that when we go to press, we kind of see how the legs are on there. There's a big difference between the legs being on the push on the way up, the concentric phase of the movement, versus the legs just kind of existing on the way down. So I think we could play around with the stance position. We could perhaps go a little bit wider and apply more pressure. Try to press yourself back up the bench. You ever been on a rolly chair? Imagine you're pushing yourself away. That's kind of a decent cue that I like sometimes for leg drive, is to imagine you're pushing yourself away on a rolly chair. So there's a little bit of quad involvement with the leg drive, not just the hips, which is sometimes going to toss your butt up off the bench. Now, also, as we get into the touch here, we're seeing this flare kind of get bigger and bigger, and then we kind of dump the bar forward a little into the touch. I think slightly tucking those elbows just a little bit more to keep that kind of more advantageous forearm angle, and also learning to control and embrace the pause. This is one of the biggest things that I've found out with working with athletes over the years, is that those athletes that get comfortable with that bottom position where the bar is on your chest, they find a position where they can store that energy, where they can wait for that press command, where they can be comfortable in that end range of motion. The lifters that embrace and get good at that, they develop good presses. The training cycles where, for me, it feels like I'm doing a better job of creating a good strong bottom position, I end up pressing more weight. And it just is a matter of trying to kind of keep some kind of advantage, whether it's driving your chest up more, whether it's keeping your back tighter, but building that bottom position, embracing it, and becoming more and more comfortable in that bottom position is such a massive part of having a good, consistent bench press. And it looks to me like the touch is super quick, and we just kind of want to get it off of us right away. So especially with training loads, learn to kind of embrace that position on the chest. There's that app Discord again sneaking in. All right, our next one is from Treys. Now, Treys is lifting 5 or 6 months. They're competing in their first meet November. He said that cricket is their main sport. Deadlift is the favorite lift here, but trouble bringing hips into the bar. So they said they're using the cue of trying to wrap the bar around their shins. And I think that, they wanted to know if there's some sort of issue where they're going to be losing tension or seeing some kind of energy leak from that cueing. Now, Trey, I don't really think that's a big issue. It looks to me like you're doing a pretty good job. That wrap the bar around yourself cue like this is going to cue a lot of scapular depression, a lot of pulling those shoulder blades in, creating a lot of, potentially external rotation, which, to a point is probably a good thing. But I think the biggest thing you should work on here is just finding a consistent way to pull the slack out of the bar. So number one, I would push the knees out into your arms a little bit. It looks like we're maybe a little crowded in, seeing that kind of inward angle from the heel to the knee. If we were to look at this deadlift bang on from the front, it looks like we're maybe biased a little bit towards the heels. So allow those knees a tiny bit more forward at the bottom, allow a little bit of toe pressure so that we're balanced between the heel and toe. And I think if we can do that and then be patient off the floor, and try to, again, it's that bottom position. We need to embrace these more challenging positions in powerlifting. And I think more often than not, people who are good at transitioning into and out of the bottom of squat, people who are good in the start position of the deadlift, those are the people who lift the most weight more often than not. So, perfecting these positions, I think is really, really important. And to me, it looks like we're a little bit further behind the bar. You said you're having trouble, getting your hips into the bar. And I think it's a matter of just allowing your knees forward a little more. Bring your stance in slightly. Push your knees out into your arms. Allow your knees to track slightly more forward and apply some toe pressure. Drive your toes down as you come up. That'll help you find a little bit more quads. And then we'll be able to maintain, this is a pretty good example actually of a good rep where we do kind of stay in the quads a little more. But if we look at some of these earlier reps, we're definitely seeing a little more of the hips kind of coming up behind us. And I think a real sort of bias for the posterior chain. So I think working on that start position is going to go a long ways for you. So try that out. And I hope that helps you, Treys. And good luck with your cricket season. All right, up next is Mark. Mark is doing some squats. He's got 180 kilos for 5. He says he's not training for competition, but has been training 2 years. Squats feel good, but he says when he gets to more intense loads and loading, his hips shoot up behind him. So he says doing a bunch of upper back GPP has helped, and I think to a point, that'll do it. I often will go out of my way to recommend people train their upper backs harder, especially when it comes to power lifters. We use the upper back to have the muscular endurance to hold the position for the bench press. We use the upper back to literally hold the bar in the squat, and we use the upper back to brace against the brunt of the force in the deadlift so that we can transfer that load kind of down to the hips and be able to manipulate the trunk up through lockout. Anyways, I digress. When we get to actually thinking about technique and technical cueing here for Mark, I think one of the biggest things I'm going to say is, allow yourself to lean a little more. I think we're falling forward very slightly, and I think we're falling forward into what I would consider a perfectly acceptable position. However, that sensation of falling forward as the lifter is going to feel like, holy crap, this is just a Mark Ripito signature, I want your hips flying up behind you kind of thing. That's not at all what this looks like. Watching this back, this looks very reasonable. We do have a little bit of the hips rising, sort of before the torso, but the bigger thing is that we're seeing this torso angle change from being quite a bit more upright to being a little bit more horizontal. And I think embracing a little bit more of a horizontal position on the way down will allow you to have a more consistent and stable torso angle, which is going to feel a lot better. So, the usual cues when it comes to, fighting against this kind of squat morning pattern are going to be the usual suspects of drive your toes down, try to keep your knees forward out of the bottom, try to stay in your quads and feel some quad sensation, feel the quads doing work and contributing. As well as where I'm coming at this from is let yourself lean more on the way down, so that if that bar shifts, if we end up, needing to be in essentially this position on the way up, well, we were there on the way down. So it's not a movement forward where we're creating this kind of momentum against ourselves, right? The other thing I'm seeing here is potentially some lapse of tightness in the upper back as we change direction. So, I would play with your grip width. I think a lot of the times more heavyweight lifters who tend to get really close in, we're creating this kind of like artificial, or not artificial, it's more of like a passive tightness as opposed to an active tightness. And this is just a sort of arbitrary way for me to make this distinction in words. It's not that, you know, your muscles aren't active or anything like that. But what we see when we cram the hands really close together is, you know, the physical structures of the back, the shoulder blades, you know, get essentially wedged into each other. Now, when the shoulder blades are wedged into each other like that, it might be hard for you to kind of feel what's going on back there and to like very purposefully create more contraction. So going slightly wider might allow you that little bit of room to be like, okay, well, now we can get some range of motion. Now we can feel where that end range is, and we can feel a little bit more contraction in the lats and in the upper back to create and tighten that shelf. The last thing I'm going to suggest here is that as you change directions, again, I'm going to harp on this bottom position, just like with the bench, just like the start position in the deadlift. If you can be more controlled and precise with how you're changing direction, perhaps utilizing a little bit less stretch reflex or being a little bit more intentional with that change in directions and holding more upper back tension as you do so, that's just such an invaluable thing. So, you know, cue the upper back, keep training it, perhaps lean a little more on the way down, and then, you know, you can throw those kind of cues of, you know, keep your toes driving down, stay in your quads, hips underneath you as you come back up. A lot of that stuff that's kind of been thrown around a lot over the years. But lastly, we're going to get into Josh's deadlift. Let's take a look here. So Josh is doing 160 kilos for 5. He's got 80% on the bar. This is an RPE 7 to 8, he says. Training about a year and a half, switched to sumo in the last month or two, and working on technique. So he's wondering if his hips are rising too early, if he's perhaps too forward on the bar. Now, the other thing he said that I have to stop and take a second to address is that he said he would like to compete at the end of next year, but he's not strong enough at the moment. Now, the idea of being strong enough for a competition, to me, is you're just gatekeeping yourself. Don't do that. You don't have to wait until you're strong enough to compete. You know, it might feel weird or bad to go out there and, you know, not be able to match up to what you think are, you know, strong people. But at the end of the day, anyone who's going to judge you for not being strong enough at your first powerlifting meet is a dick, and they can kick rocks. But for the most part, people who are going to be at a powerlifting meet, where people are, you know, having their first competition, are going to want nothing more than to encourage people and to meet new lifters. And it's going to be a great opportunity for you to meet like-minded people and potentially training partners, and to just fall more in love and get more involved with the sport, which is all I want for anyone. So, real quick, just make sure you check out the Calgary Barbell Training app this month. It's our 1-year anniversary. It's 30% off, 50% if you do annual. Huge giveaway, over $2,000 worth of stuff being given away in the grand prize. It's sick. We really like it. It supports the channel a lot. We're going to leave Josh's deadlift for all y'all to comment on in the description box, or the in the comments section below. And we will be back next month for Form Check Friday. If you like this, we'll be doing streams on YouTube and Twitch for Form Check Friday. Every Friday, come by, you can submit your stuff and get it checked, and we'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.